The plot thickens. Kowloon Generic Romance Episode 4, The Plot Thickens. I honestly don't know how I'm going to handle this particular episode impressions because, for those who don't know, I have been reading the manga alongside the anime adaptation, and a lot of stuff was skipped with this episode. And a lot of it either possibly answers a lot of questions or possibly creates misdirection. There is a lot of implying of what Hebinuma himself is actually doing here. It gives a lot more broader sense of feel of what's going on with Kowloon itself. What they basically open up this episode with, where essentially Kujirai B is talking about the fact that, yeah, this place once was destroyed back in 1994 and it recreated itself. Illegally, they recreated it. And it sort of gives a feel like it just kind of popped up. Like, this shouldn't be here, but it keeps coming back. And yeah, the assumption is that people are just recreating it. They want this place. They like that nostalgia. No matter what, they want to recreate this place. But there's almost a sense here where this is... I'm starting to get a vibe that Kowloon, this second Kowloon, is sort of an anomaly. It is a rift in time and space itself that's recreating itself, even if they try to destroy it. And yes, with the perspective of Hebinuma and what he's doing with Gwen, there's a lot of sense here that there is... not just clones, not just data, but there's also just this recreation place here. This place that is creating duplicates of things. And that's where it's getting like in that area of where I'm not sure if I wasn't even sure if I want to make a video out of this. But I'm going to try to explain this stuff as best as possible. But just know that there's a possibility that in the future episodes, they might actually bring this stuff up. I might be jumping the gun here, and this is stuff that's covered later on. So with all that said, let's just dive into this episode and just assume that it won't. Again, it might be stuff that's just trying to muddy up the waters in the manga, and they're like, let's just cut that part because that wasn't really relevant to the overall story. But yes, there's quite a bit that was before the opening of this episode, and it was really kind of a lot of stuff that was in the previous episode kind of pulled forward. In that, in the manga, we get a little insight into who Hebinuma himself is, who Miyuki is, the guy that we see with the forked tongue. And yes, the fact that he has this tattoo, and this is a tattoo that he got on himself in order to prove himself to the family. He got this massive tattoo in order for him to show his loyalty to the father of the family. Additionally, yes, he went so far as to even cut his own tongue to prove that he is an asset to the family, which is creepy. But yeah, there's a couple scenes where Hebinuma is kind of walking around with Gwen himself in Hong Kong. He's pointing out the fact that there's all these kind of rundown places that still kind of remain, despite the fact that, you know, technology itself is advanced. I mean, they have floating cars. Technology around Kowloon has advanced so much, but yet there's still like these little rundown corner shops and whatnot, which are essentially this nostalgia that people cannot erase. Again, going to the idea of Kowloon itself, how nostalgic that place is. It can't be erased. But that's when we get into where the episode opens up, where we have this little kind of celebration that Kujirai B is having with Kudou, and the fact that, yes, he's been there for 2 months. They have to do their welcoming party, getting into the fact that, yes, Kowloon was, you know, deconstructed way back in 1994, and that it kind of just came back. They officially call it the second Kowloon walled city. And again, it says that it was recreated illegally after it was removed. And it seems like it's just kind of coming back. You know, it's just something that people just wanted back. It's nostalgia, something that just cannot be erased. But yes, after this, Kujirai gives him a little bit of kiss. Kujirai B gives Kudou a nice little kiss there. Before the current Kujirai wakes up inside of Kudou's bedroom. I love this, again, because this is something I was talking about in previous episodes. The idea that it really did feel like at some point Kujirai decided that she did not want to be Kujirai B anymore. And I felt like she failed that, and then she kind of stumbled. But it seems like right here, it seems at this point, internally, she's actually doing this. She's actually committed to the idea that she wants to be somebody different. She wakes up the moment that Kudou says, "Do you want to know more about this Reiko that I know? Do you want me to tell you about the actual Reiko Kujirai?" She doesn't want to know. And it seems like Kujirai is just fearing the idea that if she learns more, she might disappear. If she knows more about this person, she might disappear. Which this does give credit to what they were talking about towards the end of the episode, and there's quite a bit in the manga, that yes, it does seem like there is an aspect that if the doppelganger, so to speak, if that other person, your other self, shows up, if you get too much information, you might disappear. She is afraid that if she knows too much about Kujirai B, she might disappear. She might be erased. And then there's this skip segment from the manga that technically answers where Kujirai gets this mentality of the absolute me. And the idea that when she leaves the apartment, she eventually bumps into Mr. Chow, and she's outside of a temple. He welcomes her in, shows her how to do this kind of fortune-telling method they do there, where they have to, you know, state themselves in their mind, then they have to think of a wish, and they throw these two things. And the two things have to land a certain way, and if it does, it gets it granted. But if they land the wrong way, you have to rephrase it and throw it again. And so she does this with the mindset that Kudou will fall in love with her just like he fell in love with Kujirai. Yeah. And she casts it, and it keeps not working. He's like, keep saying, rephrase it in your mind or whatever. And eventually he's like, it seems like the gods are angry at you. And she thinks that she's setting her sights too high. And he said, no, the gods are probably saying that won't make your wish come true. The way that she's phrasing it. Try making the wish again, but without changing the result. And that's what she decides, that she doesn't want to be someone else. She wants to be the absolute me. The idea that she does not want to be Kujirai. She doesn't want Kudou to love her like Kujirai. She wants him to love her. She wants to be the absolute her. And again, that's what she ends up bringing to Yaomei later on. But yeah, that's when we get the scene with Miyuki and Gwen traveling around. They end up going to the goldfish place. The entire time, Gwen is afraid that they're going to run into the other Gwen, and that Hebinuma is going to fall in love with this other Gwen. He's like, yeah, that would be interesting to see if that second version of you would fall in love with me. Yeah, they go by the tea house itself, which they can't go inside, but they go to the back door, and that's where we note that Gwen, apparently before the other Kowloon, he actually created a little shelter for the cats. And since it's not here, since there's no trace here, this is definitely not the place that he was before. But he also points out a lot of other things that, yes, feel off about this place. The idea that you have these eye drops, which apparently are like 3 years old. They launched them 3 years ago, but for some reason, Kowloon, it's still a brand new product, which, yes, Hebinuma is like, that's fine. I mean, the logistical problems with, shipping things to Kowloon, since it's so old, yes, it makes sense that things that have launched a long time ago are now new here. It's only just arriving at their store shelves. But then Gwen points out a few more things, specifically the fact that Kujirai's beauty mark is identical to the other Kujirai, the real Kujirai, the one that has passed away, which this sets something off on Hebinuma, which was very odd for me, honestly. The moment he was like, wait, what? She has a mole and it's identical? I'm like, wait, why wouldn't he see that? He literally seen Kujirai, this current Kujirai. He's seen her and got up real close to her face, enough to see her crow's feet. So why would he not see the mole? That makes sense later on, as it does point out in the manga that he only knows data about Kujirai. Now, here's where things get really weird again from the manga compared to the anime. It's already getting to the idea that there is also data on Kujirai. Not only do we have the Kujirai B, do we have the Kujirai that's currently here, and then we have apparently a dead Kujirai, the original that everybody thinks is dead, but now we also have the data of Kujirai. Now, is the data just stuff that's on a sheet that he pulled up on his computer, or is it data that is in the generic Terra? That's the question mark. Is there technically 4 Kujirais? Again, the manga starts to get a lot of information in here that I'm not sure if it's muddying up things or if it's making it just, is it misdirection or is it answering things? But that's what throws him off right here. He didn't know there was a beauty mark. This is different. This changed things. This makes things very, very interesting. Now, the question mark that I've had for a while now, and again, it's also answered in the manga right here, is why is Hebinuma so dead set on Kujirai? What does he want her for? That answers it right here. They're pointing out the fact that, yes, this girl, she's like the same. It's the same appearance. Kujirai has the same voice. It has the same warmth as the one that you loved. It must be to spare for that person, Kudou. They're talking about Kudou right here. But right here, they're saying they doubt that Kudou is the real one either. And we mentioned that in the previous episode. It does seem like Gwen himself also questions if Kudou is the original Kudou. This one could be number 2. Again, a duplicate that's created by this Kowloon. Hebinuma believes this because when he kissed Kujirai in the office where they work, when he kissed her, he was furious. Those two are likely an item. Basically, Hebinuma right here is claiming that if Kudou was the real one, he wouldn't have been bothered by this. But he's bothered because they have a relationship here, which we know that this is not happening. Kudou is constantly pushing back on Kujirai. But again, it goes to that whole statement there where it does seem like Hebinuma does seem to think that the two of them aren't a pair. These two are not in a relationship, and they shouldn't be. And again, it does seem to be something to the effect of Kudou feeling that he killed Kujirai. I believe that ending statement is probably going to be an aspect of he blames himself for something, which I'll get my theories in when we get around to it. So anyways, Gwen says, so the Kowloon isn't the Kowloon that I knew after all. It's a fake. But then he says, wait, it's not fake. It's a different one, right, Dr. Hebinuma? It seems like Hebinuma has already pre-established with Gwen right here that this is a duplicate Kowloon, not necessarily a fake Kowloon, because that makes sense. They're in there. They're physically in this location. But yes, we already see that this is probably a duplicate of a past Kowloon that is recreating itself even though they demolish it. But additionally, Hebinuma says, exactly, we ought to see them as independent individuals. And this is where things get very interesting because it seems like it's trying to peg everything that's existing in the Kowloon as having rights or an existence that should be respected. I mean, it goes so far as that Hebinuma so badly wants to see the Gwen of this world, like the Gwen of this Kowloon. He wants to see how well replicated it is because he's noting how well, this Kujirai was actually replicated based on, what Gwen has actually experienced meeting Kujirai, the real living Kujirai. But here's where it kind of gets into sort of Hebinuma and Gwen's conversation sort of matching what Kudou and Kujirai is kind of experiencing right here. So hopefully I explain this well. It essentially gets in the idea that, yes, Hebinuma wants to see this other Gwen that is in this reality, which we have already seen is he's missing. And it seems to imply at the end of this episode that he's gone. He has been erased. The idea here is that Hebinuma badly wants to see this Gwen because he wants to see how similar it is, whereas Gwen is afraid that Hebinuma will fall in love with this other Gwen. If he sees his other self, he's going to immediately connect to it. But it seems like Hebinuma is very strict on the idea that he believes that if he finds this other Gwen, there will be no connection. There's this aspect of the human soul, these memories that you create with individuals, that creates that connection that you don't just find by running into somebody that looks similar, but has none of your memories of your romance together. So it is sort of playing into what Kudou's experiencing here, that even though Kujirai, the one that's in front of him, looks just like Kujirai B, it's missing the memories. And they said that several times in the anime itself, in this episode, I believe, as well, that Kujirai doesn't see something in there. It's missing that memory, that certain memory. It may have been the memory from the beginning of this episode, that memory of them, her being tipsy, her, strap going down, him, fixing it, and then the kiss. These memories they had together that she has no clue about, but yet she's trying to be this Kujirai. It's not the same. She doesn't have the memories, doesn't have all these moments that we had together. She doesn't have the experiences that we had together. And again, it seems like with Hebinuma, he's having that same stance when it comes to the possibility of seeing another Gwen, which if you're not getting it by now, yes, Hebinuma and Gwen are a thing. So he's not going to see that same thing with another Gwen. And it's interesting because the whole idea of having these duplicates and whatnot seems to be getting into a deeper subject here about sort of rights and seeing sort of an individuality to each individual, if that's the best way to put it. Gwen believes that Hebinuma could not see them as separate people, and he's glad that it's a second Kudou that is here. If it were the real him, it would be unbearable. Again, getting to the idea of him seeing this other Kujirai. They point out that they're siding with the real ones rather than the original ones a lot. Okay, that statement right there threw me through a loop. We're talking about originals and real ones. So is the real ones the live, living, breathing ones? The originals are the first of Kowloon, and then these ones are the duplicates? It's getting so confusing right here. I'm not even sure if I want to read too much in those statements right there, because that's where it's getting very muddied, and I'm not sure if it's trying to throw a lot of misdirection at my face right there. But anyways, going past that, that's where we finally get into finding out why Miyuki Hebinuma is currently looking for Kujirai, why he's interested in this new Reiko Kujirai. And that's the fact that he's doing research for the Zirconian. And again, this is what Yaomei was talking about, that the Zirconians are clones. This is new technology they're currently looking into. And Hebinuma seems to be looking for Reiko in order to research her for the development of their clones. Which Gwen says it doesn't need to be her. There's plenty of people in here that are copies too, like Gwen, the other Gwen they're currently trying to look for. And yes, Kudou, him being possibly a copy as well. Grab anyone in this place. The law here is not the same. Just grab one of them and take them out of here. But Hebinuma specifically wants Kujirai because there's a couple things that she has alongside of it. The fact that they have somebody, Gwen, that knows the real Kujirai before she died. They have her biological data that is inside of their system, apparently. And it was all luck that they found that she was once from Japan. So it kind of has all this information, this data that they already have on this Kujirai, and how close she is to the original that has died, that this is the perfect, so to speak, copy that would be for their research for this Zirconian cloning. I'm not sure exactly if they're getting into... I know that I think they specify that Zirconians, which is the clones, is a technology within Hebinuma Corp, I believe. Either way, he wants that for that research. So again, it explains why he's so damn obsessed with her. Anyways, I think that's pretty much the bulk of like all the skipped content. My gosh, I'm sorry. Hopefully a lot of that made sense to you guys. Outside of that, what else happened in this episode? I mean, there was a few good scenes in this episode outside of all that stuff. Getting to find out that Yaomei apparently got a job being a seamstress. She apparently really likes it. There was a lot in this episode with Yaomei trying to push Kujirai to not be Kujirai B. It's like they have this moment where Kujirai tells her, I've decided to be my absolute self, be my own self. This Kujirai B, she's dead. I'm not her. We've established that. And yeah, I have that brief moment where Yaomei's afraid, like, oh, so you're a ghost? You're a dead person? But Yaomei is constantly saying, girl, do your own thing. Get rid of that apartment. Clean it. Change it. Move somewhere else. Go somewhere else. But it doesn't seem like Kujirai wants to let it go. And it does seem like there's a lot here to do that Kujirai doesn't want to erase Kujirai B. Like, there's a respect for what her original self is. Even though she has established, I'm not this person, that person's dead, and I'll never be that person, and that Kudou's never going to accept me to be that person, she doesn't want to erase that person. Because she feels similar. She has this current feeling in her gut that if, she gets too close to that, she gets too much information, she might be erased. She's currently afraid of being erased. She's just this data, this copy. So I don't want to do the same thing to that person. I don't want to delete what was once her. I want to keep that room how it is. I don't want to get rid of it. So very interesting that, again, Yaomei's pushing. She's pushing real hard. But Kujirai does not want to let it go for a reason. So it's pretty cool. I like how much Yaomei is trying to respect that and try to help push her forward. Because, again, that's what Yaomei is. Yaomei is somebody that was once somebody else, completely had a full one-over, complete redone, everything. Funny because there was a segment in the skip content chapter where Hebinuma is walking down the street with Gwen, and at some point, somebody with long blonde hair walks by him, and Hebinuma takes a brief glance at him. Brief glance. And I was like thinking, is that Yaomei? And why would he be interested in Yaomei? Unless it's like a past worker or something. It seems like Yaomei acts like she's never met Hebinuma. But there's like a side of me that almost wonders if possibly... Is it Kujirai? Is there a possibility Yaomei might be Kujirai before she died and possibly just got plastic surgery to get away from it all? Maybe she was trying to separate herself from Kudou and whatnot, and thus this Yaomei is possibly Kujirai. Because she says from head to toe, completely redone. Completely redone. And with Hebinuma taking a glance at somebody that from the back end looks kind of like her, I kind of wonder. Anyway, that's a crazy off the walls. I mean, I do like how the relationship between Yaomei and Kujirai. I mean, that whole segment, her saying, look, this right here, this is a fake diamond. But guess what? Even though it's supposedly fake, everybody looks at it and says it's fake, so it's fake. I look at it and I see sparkles. I still see a sparkle in something that most people see as a fake. I'm not like them. I see you as something that sparkles. You're not just a fake. Really cool. I love how much Yaomei takes care of her. Even though it seems like Kujirai never wants to take her advice, it just wants to keep running back to being Kujirai B. Yeah, Yaomei pointed out to her the idea that there was some information in the Gene Terra project that apparently they were looking into clones. So that's that whole thing again, being brought up right there. They had the housewarming party for Zohei. That was a fun little bit there. I like how Yaomei just puts all the lemons onto the plate for Kudou. That's all you deserve. Get the heck out of here, you dirtbag. And then jerk Kudou, after the party, going up there and just getting really close to her, saying, yeah, that was that moment that Hebinuma kissed you. You leave yourself unguarded, go up there and just puffs it in her face. What a jerk. He's such a jerk. But yeah, kind of pointing out the idea of why the moon itself lights up so much is because it reflects the sunlight. But why does the generic Terra itself, why does that light up so much? It was so odd how Kujirai just kind of brightens up right here and talks about the hopes and whatnot. Because people have high hopes for this, they're expecting that it's going to be lit up. That our high hopes for that generic Terra, ours, like it almost feels like she's saying, we as a people, we have high hopes for this. And it almost felt like it was like this random out of nowhere program just suddenly saying like advertisement for the generic Terra. But I think what she's probably saying there is the idea of just talk about how when people have hopes for other people, they sparkle for them. And the idea that, yeah, Kujirai has this hope for them and that it sparkles a lot. It's kind of where I'm assuming that's going. And yeah, how much Kudou thinks that something's definitely wrong in Kowloon this summer. Everything's messed up right now. Which, yes, that's where we have that last scene where everything kind of gets flipped on its head. Yes, where out of nowhere, Mr. Chan goes missing, and Chan is with Hebinuma and Gwen, and on the phone nearby, outside of Kowloon, they bring the actual Mr. Chen into there, and the moment he steps into Kowloon, deleted. The copy in Kowloon is deleted. Which, yes, that was the whole test there, was that Hebinuma wanted to help Gwen out. Because this entire segment and skip chapters, Gwen keeps saying, I don't want you to see my other self. I don't want you to see my other self. Right here, it's just confirming. We don't have to look for your other self no more. He's gone. The moment you came in here, the copy that was in Kowloon, in this reality, disappeared. Again, it's almost like a paradox is created the moment that happened. Now, here's the interesting thing. So they just figured out how they can just essentially erase somebody just by bringing their real self there. And they're now contacting a realty company to look for Hajime Kudou. So that's implying that the real Hajime Kudou is still alive. They've established, or they've said several times before, if it's true, that Reiko Kujirai is dead. But it seems like Hajime Kudou is possibly still alive, and they're trying to find him. And yeah, they've already mentioned before that Gwen knows him. He's never said that the current Kujirai is dead. They're just saying that the Kudou in this place is probably a copy. So that's the question mark there. Is the current Kudou that's already in there the real one, and he just came in that area? Now, the massive question mark and the struggle here, I would assume that the current Kudou inside of this Kowloon is the real one, because he has too many memories of the past. Whereas it doesn't imply that anybody else has memories of another existence of Kowloon. Now, how that plays into this last little bit here is the question mark. Because yes, as they're walking, he's mentioned the fact that, yeah, Chan probably dead. People die easily, But then he says, what do you know about Kujirai? And Kujirai says that she no longer exists in this world. And he said, who told you that? Gwen. Oh, when'd you see him? I bumped into him. Laughs. At the same time, Hebinuma and Gwen are talking about this. And is mentioning specifically that it's uncomfortable for Gwen to bring it up. That when it happened, he told Kudou that it must have been a mistake. And it cuts back to Kudou, and he says, I killed her. What? We've been emphasizing so much in this segment about the idea of bringing somebody from the outside and it deleting something. It's making me wonder if this whole plot line, and this is going to be really funny if this is the case, if this whole deeper plot line is the idea that not necessarily that Kujirai B was the real one, but that the current Kujirai that we are currently viewing is the living, breathing one that was brought into Kowloon, and it deleted Kujirai B that was a copy in here that Kudou was in love with, thus giving the answer as to why Kudou believes that he killed Kujirai. He brought the real Kujirai to this Kowloon, and it deleted the one that he loved. That would be kind of a little bit too simple, a little weird, but it's still kind of what popped in my head with how much emphasis in this segment is given to the idea of a replica being removed the moment the real one arrives, and that they're trying to find these individuals to bring them in for some reason. Again, Hebinuma seems to be fully focused on the idea of studying these duplicates that are in this area. They seem to be from the outside. From Hebinuma and Gwen, we're getting a lot of perspective of Hong Kong and areas outside of Kowloon. They're bringing people here, and how much everything in here is a copy of some sort. It's very, very interesting. And again, I don't know how much of this in this skip segment is just crazy misdirection that possibly wasn't needed in the final product, but it's just super weird, and it's complicating it so much more. And I'm even more intrigued as to where the hell this is going to go going forward. But like I said, hopefully a lot of this stuff does end up getting into the next episodes, because I feel like a lot of this, if it is to the bigger plot line, is some massive skipped content that may completely mess up the rest of the anime if it's not there later on. But we'll see. But that's super intriguing. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting with my current theories, is that Kudou may have erased the copy Kujirai that is in Kowloon that he was in love with. And that'd be super intriguing. That it's not necessarily that this Kujirai is a bad person, and that she shouldn't be upset about being herself because she is the original. And again, it kind of gives credit to what Hebinuma and Gwen were talking about in the skip segment about how much emphasis it's giving to the idea of replicas, copies, originals, all having their own individuality. But yet also the fact that the world as a whole, or at least China, does not give much rights or laws to Kowloon itself. This place is technically illegally existing, and they can't seem to get rid of it. It's weird. Super weird. But anyways, I hope I explained all that really well. If not, I'm sure there'll be people in the comments down below that know the source material a lot better than I do, and they will explain it better. Hopefully I don't spoil things beyond this. But that's kind of the gist that I got from this segment that was massively skipped. And I hope you guys enjoyed this information and enjoyed a lot of the crazy mind melting it kind of caused me. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button down below, comment. If you like this content, you want to support John more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it. Until next time, y'all take care.